Good day, grade 12, and a very warm welcome to our virtual tourism classroom. My name is Penny Vosloo. I'm a tourism teacher in the Nelson Mandela Bay district, and I am presenting today's lesson on marketing. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the role played by Erica Ferreira, who is the subject advisor for tourism in Zone 1 of the Nelson Mandela Bay. Erica has compiled all of this material that you will be seeing in today's lesson and the follow-up lesson on marketing, and also a word of acknowledgement to the e-Teaching and Learning Directorate of the Eastern Cape Department of Education, who have made this possible. Okay, grade 12, we are going to be doing our first half of marketing in today's lesson. You will see on your screen at the moment, Marketing South Africa as a Tourism Destination. And specifically in today's lesson, we will be looking at the importance of marketing South Africa internationally, as well as the core business of SATourism. The opportunities for marketing South Africa internationally, funding for the marketing initiatives, branding of South Africa, and the local travel shows will be done in the follow-up lesson. Before I start grade 12, just to give you some guidelines as to what you can expect in this section when you are answering an exam paper. You will be required to have a vast amount of knowledge about the various aspects of marketing that you see on the screen in front of you, but you will also be required to apply that knowledge. So it is not only important for you to know the importance of marketing and the core business of SATourism. The questions will be asked in such a way that you will be required to apply that knowledge in answering them correctly. So bear that in the back of your mind so that you know what to expect when a question paper comes up. All right, as you saw, we are starting with the importance of marketing South Africa internationally. And if you take a look at your first bullet on your screen, international marketing ensures that South Africa competes in and taps into a highly competitive marketplace. Now, I'd just like to focus on the last three words in that statement, highly competitive marketplace. This is quite a challenge to South Africa. As you will remember, you are aware, we are on the southernmost tip of Africa, and in order for international visitors from Europe or North or South America or Australia to get to South Africa, they have to take a long-haul flight. Now, I'd just like to take you back to the beginning of grade 11. We learned about different types of flights. We had a short-haul, a medium-haul, and a long-haul flight. And in order for any tourist from one of those countries that I mentioned or continents that I mentioned to come and visit South Africa, they would have to take a long-haul flight. So therefore we can say that South Africa is known as a long-haul destination. So it does make the marketplace very competitive, because if you bear in mind these extremely long flights also end up being extremely expensive flights. So in order to attract the international tourists from European countries, North or South America or Australia, to come and visit South Africa, we need to have a unique selling point. And that unique selling point could be anything from the wildlife that is in South Africa that the international visitors want to come and view. It could also be the scenic beauty and our big variety of different cultures. And The secret behind marketing of South Africa that would lead to success is to have that unique selling point and turn it into awareness, but not only awareness, also into an actual visit. So we want the potential tourists out there to be aware of our unique selling point, but we also want those potential tourists to come to South Africa so that that awareness becomes an actual visit. So that is what it means when we say we are in a highly competitive marketplace. Now, just a bit of information here. We have globally over 1 billion people who travel each year. And South Africa is not even receiving 1% of those international travelers. So therefore, it's very, very important for us to market in South Africa and market South Africa to the international market so that we can attract more visitors to our shores. We're going to have a look at the key objectives of marketing South Africa as a tourist destination, and these are on your screen at the moment at the bottom. The key objectives of marketing South Africa as a tourist destination are two. Firstly, increase in annual volume of foreign arrivals in South Africa. And secondly, an increase in international awareness of South Africa as a travel destination. So the key objectives, it's important that you know exactly what they are, but also that, as I said earlier, you are able to apply that knowledge when asked questions in an exam paper. So let us take a look at how each of these are unpacked so that you will know how to apply your knowledge. Firstly, we're taking a look at the increase in annual volume of foreign arrivals in South Africa. And the first bullet that comes up on your screen is successful marketing will lead to an increase in tourist arrivals or the volume of tourists visiting the country. Now that is exactly the meaning in this case of the word volume. We want to increase the number of international tourist arrivals visiting the country. So we're busy with the first of the key objectives, and that is to increase the number of tourist arrivals, the volume of tourists visiting our country. Now this could be in the form of new arrivals to South Africa, or if you look at the second bullet on your screen, successful marketing can encourage repeat visits. Now that is when a visitor comes to South Africa and comes back again on a different visit at a later stage. Now those repeat visits could be to visit new activities and attractions or new developments, or it could be to have a second look at something that they've experienced already. But at the end of the day, if we market successfully, we can inform previous visitors about the new developments that have taken place and the new activities and attractions on offer. If we then continue, we'll see that successful marketing sets the multiplier effect into motion. Now remember, we are still busy here with the first key objective, which is an increase in annual volume. We've spoken about getting more tourists here. We've spoken about repeat visits, and now we are touching on the economic side of matters, because when you have international visitors coming into South Africa, they spend money. And if you go back to our foreign exchange lesson that we did a while back, we had the term there, the multiplier effect. And I'm sure you will remember the multiplier effect means that the initial spent by the international visitors is then respent and filters through the economy. So if you have successful marketing, you're going to have your tourists coming into the country with their money that they bring in with them, which ends up at the end of the day putting the multiplier effect into motion. And that obviously goes hand in hand with job creation and contribution to GDP growth. Because if you have more tourists coming in, you've got more foreign money coming in. So the multiplier effect is going to be set into motion. And then when you have successful tourism businesses, they will need to employ more people, and therefore that is directly linked to job creation. And at the end of the day, you will find that tourism contributes a greater amount to the GDP growth, and therefore that is an example of successful marketing. If we then take a look at the second of the key objectives, which is an increase in international awareness of South Africa as a travel destination. Now, marketing showcases the attractiveness of South Africa. And as I mentioned earlier, there are a variety of unique selling points in South Africa, be it the beautiful scenery, the various cultures, the wildlife, but those unique selling points will be showcased by marketing. And marketing then creates an awareness of a destination with respect to the type of destination. Now, this is a new term that we have here on the screen in front of you, destination characteristics. Now, destination characteristics refers specifically to the type of destination, so what it has to offer. And in South Africa, if you just have to take a look at the magnificent images on the right-hand side of your screen, you can already see what South Africa has to offer. I don't even have to repeat it to you. So we've got the attractiveness of South Africa being showcased by marketing, which is creating an awareness of the destination as to what is on offer at the destination. And the final bullet on your screen, you will see marketing campaigns can then address the lack of information and target key tourist segments with specific information. Now, there may be a lack of information in certain areas of the globe about South Africa. There may even be people that have perhaps not even heard of South Africa, and we need to make them aware of the attractiveness, in other words, showcase our attractiveness, and also inform these potential tourists of the destination characteristics that South Africa has on offer. So that is why it brings us to the final bullet that on your screen that tells you that marketing campaigns can address the lack of information and target key tourist segments. So we need to go out there and find out who the potential tourists are and supply those tourists with information about what is on offer in South Africa, and those particular products must specifically be something that they are interested in. If we then continue with our second key objective, and that is that marketing will create a positive image of South Africa. So remember, we've got our destination characteristics that we want to showcase. We want to inform the potential tourists about what we have on offer, and that then goes hand in hand with the creation of a positive image of South Africa. And a positive image, together with successful marketing, will increase the possibility of inbound tourists considering South Africa as an attractive destination of choice. Now let me draw your attention to those three images at the bottom of your screen. You will see that the first one is creating or represents creating an awareness of South Africa as a destination through the different methods that I have discussed already in this lesson. That awareness will result in a positive image of South Africa, and finally will lead to consideration of South Africa as a tourist destination. So if you look on the right hand side, all those different clouds represent different countries. So what we want at the end of the day is that your international tourists pick the cloud that has the South African flag on, which means that it could lead to a visit from international visitors to South Africa. Now we go to the second part of our lesson, which is the core business of South African tourism. Now, South African Tourism is the national tourism agency that is responsible for marketing South Africa as a destination, both on the international platform and the domestic platform. SATourism works very closely with the National Department of Tourism, and they put their efforts together in marketing of South Africa on both of these platforms. We need to take a look at the specific core business of SATourism, and that is on your screen at the moment. Firstly, you have marketing South Africa internationally as a tourism destination of choice. Secondly, you have maintaining and enhancing the standard of facilities and services for tourists. Thirdly, coordinating the marketing activities of role players in the industry. Just take a second or two to read through those three statements that are given there. Those are referred to as the core business of SATourism. And what we will do as we go through the rest of this lesson, we will be unpacking each one individually. Right, firstly, grade 12, we have marketing South Africa internationally as a tourism destination of choice. And there are many, many ways in which SATourism does this. We are going to take a look at a few of them. Firstly, SATourism travels to different countries to promote and market South Africa internationally. So SATourism has what is termed a road show, and through that road show, the delegates travel to different countries and tell the people, tell the tourism industry, tell the potential tourists about South Africa. You can see on the right hand side you have your South African Tourism Roadshow to South America. In the center there is a Tourism Trade Roadshow to China, and on the left hand side the similar exercise in West Africa. So essentially what we have there is a number of delegates traveling to the countries to inform the travel providers and the travel industry and the tourism departments of those countries about what is on offer in South Africa. Another strategy that SATourism undertakes is advertising on various platforms that can be seen and are extremely visible. For example, buses and taxis in major cities around the world, and I'd just like to draw your attention to the London taxi on the top right hand side of your screen, where that you will see that was a campaign by SATourism. They put images of the big five on London taxis, and that created an awareness amongst the people that saw those taxis in that area. Another way of marketing would be by making use of huge billboards placed in strategic points around the city, printed media, online marketing, marketing in social media, as well as popular global television stations, BBC, Al Jazeera, CNN, and you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen there is an advert that for South Africa that was placed on CNN. Now, that is not all that South African tourism does. They also participate in major travel shows, both on the local and on the international front. And another strategy used by South African tourism is to open a publicity office abroad, whereby you will see that there is a publicity office for South African tourism located in New York or in London or in Sydney, Australia, and that assists in marketing South Africa internationally as a tourism destination of choice. We are still busy with marketing South Africa internationally as a tourism destination of choice, which is the first of SATourism's core business projects. You will see that SATourism markets the South African tourism product as a value for money destination. Now, I would also perhaps go back to the foreign exchange lesson that we discussed, the value of a strong rand or a weak rand. And our rand at the moment in relation to other currencies, major currencies, is relatively weak. And that means that your international travelers will get more rand when they exchange their currency when coming to South Africa, which will make South Africa then a value for money destination. And that is how SATourism is then marketing South Africa as a value for money destination for international travelers. The next bullet on your screen you will see refers to showcasing the various tourism products and services that are available in South Africa, and that is definitely a way of making the international or potential international community or tourists aware of what we have on offer. So we need to showcase, we need to inform the travelers out there or the potential travelers out there what we have on offer. Then we also see that South African tourism creates opportunities for role players, and those role players from South Africa to network with international role players. Networking would involve setting up meetings and discussions, perhaps exchanging contact details with a view to having collaboration on the travel front. So that is another thing that South African tourism does, creates opportunities. And at the same time also creates investment opportunities. And those investment opportunities are created for tourism professionals on an international platform. It's important for us to be able to attract investment, so that means economic progress for South Africa. Now, just to give you an example, sandparks if you look on their website, they have a list of investment opportunities for international investors, which would help to grow tourism in South Africa. If we then continue to look at the core business of SATourism, the first bullet on your screen, in order to ensure that the marketing budget is used effectively, SATourism divides the international market into segments to identify the most important markets on which to focus. Now, if we could perhaps just take a few minutes to have a look at that word segments. Your market segments refers to a group of people who have a common characteristic when it comes to their travel needs. I'm sure you will remember that when we looked at marketing previously in grade 11, we also made reference to market segments, and here it is again. And you will see that South African tourism categorizes market segments as a variety of segments. What we have on the screen at the moment is core segments or core markets. We also have investment markets, tactical markets, watch list markets, strategic importance, as well as strategic air links or hubs. Now, grade 12, I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time looking at each one of these definitions of the different type of markets. Perhaps that we can just focus on the first one, which is a core market, a market in which South Africa's is a main tourist market of South Africa, and South African tourism spends considerable resources. And obviously that is one of the markets that is giving the most return. And there's a variety of other market segments that are given in your screen. I'd like to refer you to your tourism textbook, and you must go and have a look at the various definitions of each so that you understand that fully. We are now on the second of the core business of South African tourism, which is maintaining and enhancing the standard of facilities and services for tourists. Now, in order for SATourism to market South Africa, tourism businesses must be able to deliver on the marketing promise. And that marketing promise would be the quality of the offering, and the standard of facilities and service must be of the highest standard. One method that is used to do this is by having your tourism establishment graded by the Tourism Grading Council of South Africa, which is a business unit of SATourism, and they are responsible for grading tourism businesses, whether it be a hotel or a guest house or a bed and breakfast, but they grade the establishment and then give them a number of stars depending on this type of facilities and services that they render and that they have available. You may remember that we did the Tourism Grading Council in grade 10, and we studied that in great detail then. So this is not something that is new to you at this stage, but what I do want to just remind you that this is about standard setting. This is about maintaining the marketing promise, maintaining the quality of the standard of facilities and services that are on offer in South Africa. So a tourist must be able to be reassured that a 5-star establishment in one place is on the same level as a 5-star establishment in a different place. And so that is one way of maintaining the standard of facilities and services, but also enhancing the standard of facilities and services for tourists. Another way of maintaining and enhancing the standard of facilities and services for tourists is by applying and receiving a tourism award. Now, what we have on the screen at the moment is a visual representation of the Lilizela Tourism Awards. Lilizela Awards were launched in 2013. It was a collaboration between SATourism and the Tourism Grading Council of South Africa. And the reasoning behind the Lilizela Tourism Awards is to recognize and reward excellence in tourism. Now you will see that the Lilizela Awards focuses on a variety of areas. The first one on your screen at the moment is the service excellence focus. The second bullet refers to the entrepreneurship category. And the third one refers to the Universal Accessibility Awards and the Triple BEE Awards. Now, if we could just take a time out to look at each of these individually and see how they relate to SATourism maintaining and enhancing the standard of facilities and services for tourists. The Service Excellence Awards has 3 different categories: Accommodation, Tourist Guides Awards, and Visitor Experience Awards. So any recipient of those awards, whether it be a tourist guide, whether it be an accommodation establishment, is putting the message out there that they are maintaining and enhancing the standard of facilities and services. The entrepreneurship category, in the past there was an award for the Emerging Tourism Entrepreneur of the Award. It was known as the ETEA Award, and that was given to black entrepreneurs who operated small, micro and medium tourism or hospitality businesses. And that ETEA Award has now been included amongst the Lilizela Tourism Awards. And then the bottom one on your screen is the Universal Accessibility Awards, and you should be aware of universal accessibility. We did that way back in term 2, as well as the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Awards, which recognize businesses that have proven to incorporate sustainable development into their businesses. So those are a variety of categories and types of awards that fall under the umbrella award of the Lilizela Tourism Awards. The third thing that we are looking at here is the core business of SATourism, and that is coordinating the marketing activities of role players in the industry. Now, it goes without saying, grade 12, that all role players, whether they be an independent business, whether they be a tourism agency, a tourism association, any of those, they must have marketing activities and marketing messages that are aligned to the marketing strategy of SATourism. It doesn't help if one provincial tourism agency is marketing South Africa in one way and SATourism is marketing South Africa in a different way. The marketing messages must be aligned, as well as the marketing activities must be aligned, so that we are all speaking from the same mouth, as it were, and that potential tourists get a clear message about what South Africa has on offer as a destination. We then continue. We're still busy with coordination of marketing activities. SATourism also helps to package special offers by working with the trade. Now, your trade would be your tour operators, travel agents, and that assists in catering for the identified target markets and segments. SATourism does a huge amount of research into the travel industry in South Africa as well as globally, and therefore they have a huge volume of information that will assist tour operators and travel agents to develop special offers for the specific target markets and specific segments, which SATourism can then put onto their marketing platforms, whether it be onto their website, onto their Twitter or Instagram, but they put the information out there. So there's collaboration between SATourism and the tourism trade in South Africa in order to offer the perfect package tour or special offer to potential visitors. All right, grade 12, that brings us to the end of the content part of this lesson. As has become the habit or the practice, we will now take a look at an activity, and that activity in this case comes specifically from the November 2018 final question paper. Have a look at your screen. There you have on the top left-hand side a calendar for 2018, and 3 specific events are given on that calendar. The first one is the Indaba during March, the ITB in May, and the launch of the domestic tourism growth strategy, We Do Tourism Sustainably, in June. Now just remember what I said to you earlier, and that was that when you are answering a question about marketing, you will be required to apply your knowledge. So we have the knowledge that we have done during this lesson. We now will be required to use that knowledge and apply it in answering the questions. So your first question is a 2-part question, and discuss 2 ways in which this campaign encourages, firstly, South African businesses to make a positive contribution to tourism in South Africa. We'll have a look at the second part of the question once we've looked at the possible answers for the question that's on the screen at the moment. Let's just go and unpack the question a bit. Remember, we are referring specifically to the campaign that takes place in June, which is the launch of the domestic tourism growth strategy, We Do Tourism Sustainably. How does this campaign encourage South African businesses to make a positive contribution to tourism in South Africa? I'd like you to take a bit of time out to just think of what the possible answers could be here, and then we'll see if your possible answers were correct. Here are your possible answers on the screen at the moment. Tourism businesses are encouraged to maintain high service levels to maintain good publicity. Responsible management plans are in place to support the tourism business sustainably. Tourism businesses must have sound business principles in place to ensure profitability and thus a guarantee of the business succeeding and being in operation for the future. I just want to, before we go on to the next question, just focus here on some words that have come up in each and every possible answer that has come up on your screen and take it back to the question in each case. We are asked to discuss how South African businesses make a positive contribution to tourism, and in particular we are referring to We Do Tourism Sustainably. So you will see each and every response that comes up on the screen is referring to tourism businesses as well as sustainability. So at the end of the day, grade 12, once you have written down your answer, go back and ask yourself the question, have I addressed the question correctly? Have I answered as I was required to do? That way you are testing yourself to see if you have answered the question correctly and if you will be awarded the marks. Remember, this is now the second part of our question, and the first part was how South African businesses make a positive contribution to tourism in South Africa, and the second part is South African public. How does the South African public make a positive contribution to tourism in South Africa? Again, we are referring to the We Do Tourism Sustainably. So your first answer was specifically focused on tourism businesses. Now we are speaking about the South African public. How the South African public can make a positive contribution to tourism in South Africa. And here we have our answers that would be accepted as correct in the marking guideline. Firstly, locals must become brand ambassadors for the country and always say positive things about South Africa. Each South African should play their part in ensuring South Africa is a safe, secure, clean and beautiful country. South Africans must act in a responsible way to showcase pride in their country, to encourage South Africans to be responsible travelers in their own country, and finally, encourage South Africans to explore their own country. So there you had your first question. The focus of that question was on tourism businesses. The second question, the focus on that one is the South African public. But both relate to a positive contribution to tourism in South Africa. Our final question for today's lesson: explain one reason why South African tourism made this calendar available to tourism stakeholders. Now that is a perfectly logical answer to that, and there you have it on the screen at the moment. Stakeholders can have time in advance to prepare and inform relevant parties of these marketing opportunities, and that is why one would provide stakeholders with a calendar beforehand in order for them to prepare in advance and inform relevant parties about the marketing opportunities. Okay, grade 12, that's brought us to the end of today's lesson. I trust that you enjoyed it. I trust that you learned something, and I'm looking forward to meeting with you again in our next lesson on marketing. Goodbye.